Yo, what's up? My name is Patrouski, and today I wanted to make a ramble type top 5 list video. So today I'm going to be giving you guys my recommendations on my top 5 Pokemon to use in OU for free ELO. And what I mean by this is that these are very beginner mons, at least in the sets that I'm going to provide today. And they should be able to help you kind of break into the PvP scene. Certain Pokemon aren't always as easy to pilot as others. And what that means is basically use. Pilot essentially just means use. Certain Pokemon, there's a lot more complex decisions. There's a lot more things to consider. There are a lot more high risk versus high reward, but in the right hands of like a really good player, they can be really good. A lot of the Pokemon I'm going to be listing today, you don't need to be the best player in the world to pilot/use. And I think that's a good thing. Obviously, if you use some of these Pokemon for too long, it can become a crutch. Not all these Pokemon are like noob Pokemon, quote unquote, right? Like, no Pokemon is a noob Pokemon. Some of these Pokemon are incredibly complex at some points, but they also can just be so powerful that they offer an advantage. And I'll go ahead and try to talk about everything and talk about each one of them in a decent amount of detail today. So the first Pokemon, this is for OU as well, and these Pokemon are not meant to all be used on one team, not at all. So this is not a team building guide. This is very much a, hey, maybe you could slot this into a team and just really gain some extra wins or some extra ELOs simply by slotting this Pokemon into a team. I've also tried really hard to have, a couple physical attackers. I think I have 2 physical attackers, 1 special attacker, 1 special wall, and then 1 physical wall. So it's all kind of evened out to give you guys at least one option of everything in a traditional Pokemon match. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is Choice Band Scizor specifically. I think one of the #1 most difficult things to do on Scizor, and probably one of the biggest mistakes that I personally will end up making, and that's why I avoid it, and I personally see the mistake made, is when to set up Swords Dance on Scizor. Understanding when to Swords Dance on Scizor is extremely difficult. Obviously, he's a Pokemon that has a 4x weakness. So if you bring him in and you set up a Swords Dance and they bring in their Magnezone to Hidden Power Fire you, you're just dead. Or if you just you're wasting a turn essentially. It's very, very easy to waste a turn setting up Swords Dance on Scizor and just have him get totally, utterly countered. So it's really, really difficult to run a Swords Dance Roost set on Scizor, in my opinion, unless you're a very talented player and really know what to look for and know what position to put yourself into before trying to set up that Swords Dance sweep. So I want to talk about this. The reason why Choice Band Scizor is so good for beginning players is because you can go ahead, rock the Choice Band set, go Adamant Nature, 252 attack, 252 speed. You can go into some bulk if you want to, go into X amount of HP EVs. And what happens is you can usually just U-turn out for free while doing huge damage. A lot of times you can bring Scizor in, take a decent attack, let him, tank a Psychic, tank, so many attacks pretty well, even like water type attacks, etc. He can tank a lot of stuff for Scizor, right? You don't want to bring him on Scalds if possible, because him getting burned would be a really, really bad thing. Getting your Choice Band Scizor burned is probably the thing you want to watch out for the most. So watch out for those Scalds. But Choice Band Scizor is able to do the late game sweep game similar to Swords Dance Scizor, but just to a less degree. But you can still bring in, Choice Band Scizor. Choice Band Scizor is probably the best way to play him, in my opinion, as well, and it's also the most noob friendly. Bringing him in and being able to bullet punch through the last couple members of your opponent's team, if you take out all the other bullet punch resists, is just incredible. You end up doing so much damage. Usually what I recommend running on something like Choice Band Scizor, you can go U-turn, Bullet Punch, which is, his 2 coverage moves. You can run Bug Bite as an alternative coverage move that gets boosted by Technician. And then you can also go Thief or Night Slash or some sort of Dart type move for coverage against something like Gengar, or getting through something like, Cofagrigus or something that's difficult to break, the Reuniclus, etc., etc. But Choice Band Scizor is pretty fantastic. Choice Band Scizor is probably the best. It's the best way to play him, in my personal opinion. Now, once again, I'm not an OU player. I've been playing this game for a long time, but I don't specialize in OU PvP. I've played NU PvP for most of my career, and I'm not even too good at that. So you know what? Please take all this with a grain of salt. I researched more about Pokemon more than I actually physically played the formats. But I think Choice Band Scizor is a great beginning Pokemon and just really, really powerful. There's a reason why he's the second most played Pokemon in the entire tier of OU, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 36% usage rate, 51% win rate. That's pretty impressive. Now, moving on to the second Pokemon I want to talk about. This actually might be the most difficult Pokemon to use on this list. Maybe it's another one. We'll talk about it. So, Darmanitan. specifically Choice Scarf Darmanitan. Very similar to Scizor in the way that he has access to a choice item U-turn. Being able to just U-turn out for free and always keep momentum is really fantastic. He also has just such a powerful Flare Blitz. Like, Darmanitan's Flare Blitz is probably the best in the game, and it's really nice to be able to have just like a raw damage Pokemon. For those who don't know, Darmanitan is what's known as a glass cannon, like pretty fast, very high damage attacker. So Darmanitan has crazy stats of 140 base attack, 95 speed, which is solid enough. You make up for it with Choice Scarf. And then honestly a decent HP stat, but the special defense are terrible. But his attack stat is absurd. 140 is just absolutely gigantic, especially if you end up going like Adamant Choice Scarf. I think Adamant Choice Scarf is the way to go. I think if you go Choice Scarf, you don't also need to go Jolly. If you go Jolly, you probably should go Choice Band. But I think Choice Band is not at all a beginner-friendly Darmanitan build. It's really funny how Choice Scarf ends up being very beginner-friendly, but Choice Band is like probably one of the most difficult. Choice Band Darmanitan is extremely difficult to pilot because he has so many sets and so many other Pokemon that outspeed him. If you're Choice Band, you really have to know your speed tiers. You really have to understand the meta. You have to understand what outspeeds him, etc., etc. All you really need to know with Choice Scarf Darmanitan is that Garchomp outspeeds him, or like Scarf Garchomp specifically outspeeds him. That's like the most important matchup to understand, I'd probably say. And then everything else is like pretty standard. Like there's obviously a lot of Pokemon that like obviously outspeed him. Like I think Kingdra In Rain probably outspeeds him. That makes sense. But yeah, the main one to watch out for is that Scarf Garchomp will outspeed you and he can just EQ you and obliterate you. But if you're not facing down Scarf Garchomp, you can go for those free U-turns. You can go for a huge Flare Blitz if the opportunity presents itself. One thing I will say is that don't be afraid to click Flare Blitz. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that I've made when piloting Scarf Darmanitan. Don't be afraid to click Flare Blitz. It's his big move. It's his big damage. It's stab. Yes, he's going to take recoil from it, but he's also going to do absurd damage. Like even if they switch into something that resists his Flare Blitz, you're most likely still going to do insane damage, unless that Pokemon is like a crazy defense wall. Like if they switch Hippowdon into you, you're probably going to do like 20% though. It's still pretty good Hippowdon. Off the top of my head, total guess, but yeah, Flare Blitz is just going to do absurd damage no matter what, so do not be afraid to click it. Other than that, you can go things like Superpower, U-turn, Flare Blitz. What else do you have? I forget. You can go Hammer Arm in some cases, but I don't recommend it. You really need that speed. What are the other? You can go Facade, I guess. EQ is fantastic coverage. I feel like I never see EQ on this thing, so I feel like there's another better move that I'm forgetting. Oh yeah, I guess he does have access to Rock Slide. Does he have Stone Edge? Yes, Stone Edge is really important. Really great coverage. Surprisingly, like honestly, better coverage than I ever remember. Having access to Stone Edge EQ is just already so powerful, let alone like the Flare Blitz U-turn. Really great Pokemon. I love Darmanitan. Really cool, really underrated. All right, moving on to number 3. This video is already getting too long. Kingdra, specifically in Rain. I just mentioned it for a quick sec. How Kingdra outspeeds a lot of things in Rain. Kingdra, I would say that if you wanted to break into PvP for the first time and you want to learn about PvP, learn the meta, really test stuff, but just also kind of cheese out some free wins, dude, just make a Rain team. It is absurd how easy it is to pilot Rain. In some cases, it's not. If you're playing, you'll really quickly notice. If you're piloting Rain and you're against a good player, it is actually shocking how fast you'll notice, because they'll do things like strategically try to stall out your Rain turns in certain situations. They'll do things like switching around to stall out your Rain turns. They'll start making really crazy decisions that you wouldn't really think about normally. And I really think Rain's a great way to spot good players, because if you're playing against someone, they'll immediately start outplaying you. It's really interesting to see, which is a good thing, because if you can spot whether your opponent is better than you or not, that is a huge advantage to have in Pokemon. It's actually crazy. One of the most important skills that isn't talked about enough, and I might need to make a whole video about it at some point, is just analyzing your opponent's play and understanding their skill level and understanding their play style. There's two things to understand when playing against someone: is their skill level and their play style, not just their skill level. Certain players are more aggressive, certain are more passive, etc., etc. But Kingdra itself, dude, Choice Specs Kingdra is absurd. I've talked about this. So you can go Modest as well really easily, because Swift Swim is just going to make your speed absolutely insane. The This is the exact build I'd recommend. Swift Swim, Choice Specs, Modest, 252 special attack. You can go, I don't think you need to go 252 speed. You might need to calc to figure out if you need to go 252 speed and like you might be able to go some HP EVs for some extra bulk. You just need to make sure that you outspeed most of the important threats in the tier and everything. Basically, make sure you outspeed Garchomp in Swift Swim, or like make sure you outspeed some other like Starfers, or make sure you outspeed your opponent's Kingdra. That's honestly a really important thing as well in Rain. But wow, I really recommend, yeah, Choice Specs, Modest, Swift Swim, Kingdra is it's just absurd damage. Just spam Hydro Pump. Stab Hydro Pump in Rain with Choice Specs will just 1 to 2 shot pretty much every Pokemon in the tier. It is literally disgusting how much damage this thing will end up doing. There's just so many boosts. There's so much synergy. It's really easy to just lead Pelipper. Now, Kingdra, once again, has to be played in a Rain team. As you can see, he has a 95% pairing with Pelipper. So what you do is you lead Pelipper every game, you set up Drizzle, you U-turn from Pelipper into Kingdra, and you click Hydro Pump. That's it. It's just if you just try to do that every game, I promise you'll have a decent amount of success. Now, obviously, Hydro Pump can miss. It's 85% accuracy, but it's so worth it. The damage boost is absolutely absurd compared to Surf or Scald. You absolutely should be running Hydro Pump. The damage difference is just too great to warrant running Surf or Scald, in my opinion. At least if you're on the Specs build. If you're on like Life Orb or some sort of other build, you might be able to get away with it, but I really like the Hydro Pump build. It ends up just doing so much damage, and I really can't just understate that. And you end up fixing your speed and fixing your damage all in one, and it's so powerful. It's so hard to answer. It's truly so hard to answer. And like what happens with Kingdra is like a lot of your other move slots don't end up mattering, which is hilarious. Like Hydro Pump in Rain will often end up just doing way more damage than like anything you possibly could ever click. Like a lot of times, Stab Hydro Pump in Rain is going to end up doing way more damage than like your own Draco Meteors, which is just absurd to think about. And it's Stab Draco Meteor, but it doesn't have the Rain boost. That's the main thing with Kingdra is like understanding stat calculation and understanding stab and like understanding how to calculate your damage, which is very advanced. But if you want to just skip all that, just click Hydro Pump. When in doubt, click Hydro Pump on Kingdra in Rain. That's it. It can be very brain dead, and it can earn you some really free ELO. So let's move on to the next Pokemon. The next Pokemon is going to be either probably one of the most hated Pokemon across all of the history of competitive play of Pokemon, at least in my opinion, and that's going to be Chansey/Blissey. Now, Chansey is actually slightly more bulky with Eviolite, but I actually might end up recommending Blissey. I'm not sure, just because it's nice to have the leftovers proc. The big thing you lose between Chansey and Blissey is Chansey gets a little more bulk due to Eviolite, but you have to understand your damage ranges a lot more with Chansey, because you have to understand when to click Soft Boil. Understanding when to soft boil on Chansey is way more important than Blissey, because Blissey is going to get that leftovers proc every turn, which is a big deal. Look at all these hilarious items every item that isn't leftovers on Blissey is just obviously a troll. Look at this 337 games of mail item. I have no idea. I don't think that has any practical use. I think it's just a troll. But having the leftovers proc is really good when you're a beginner, especially because it makes up for things like Sand Chip or any sort of like Hail Chip or any sort of other like weather or any sort of other chip that's going on. It's going to help you think less about calculations and just think about like what's the right move to play. It helps you essentially think less. With Chansey, you have to think about damage calculations. You have to think about what your opponent's going to do, what you're going to do, all the possibilities, what attack, what switch, etc., etc. With Blissey, you still have to think about all of that, but you can kind of cut out a lot of the damage calculations. You don't have to worry about burn damage. You don't have to worry about toxic as much. You end up just being able to chill a lot more and be able to think a lot less with Blissey. Blissey's really great because it can teleport as well. Obviously, both can, but if you don't know what Blissey is by now, Blissey is a huge wall. It's a special defense wall mostly. I mean, truly it is. But what you'll often see is what you'll often do is you should go bold nature and 252 defense and 252 HP on Blissey. You kind of end up making up for its super low defense base stat with its massive HP pool. and then you end up kind of trying to take advantage of that. So you end up making Blissey an all-around wall, which is really nice. Some people still go, as you can see, some people still go the like calm and go special defense, but in my opinion, it's just not worth it. It really never helps you. Most people go bold, as you can see here. It's going to help boost that defense stat, and going bold helps you tank things like it can tank like Darmanitan's U-turn really well, or it can tank like non-stab certain moves really well. It's not going to be able to tank any sort of fighting type move. It might be able to tank like one fighting type move, but it'll probably die. Like most fighting type moves are going to kill Chansey, and that's just the way it goes. Obviously, except for like Focus Blast, which is special, it can tank that extremely well. But yeah, Blissey's really good. It can set up Stealth Rocks. It can teleport to keep momentum. Those are probably the two most important moves you'll see on Blissey. A huge difference between Blissey and Chansey as well is that Blissey has a special attack stat. Chansey doesn't really have any sort of special attack stat. So what you can do on Blissey is you can slot in one special attacking move. So the most common move sets are probably, you probably go some mix of Toxic Protect as well, especially with Blissey. Blissey works really well as a Toxic Protector because it has access to leftovers. There's a lot of moves you can go. There's a lot of sets you can go. You can go Soft Boil, you can go Toxic, you can go Protect, you can go Stealth Rocks, you can go Teleport, you can slot in an Ice Beam coverage, you can slot in Fire Blast or Thunder. There's a lot of like coverage moves. The most common coverage moves you'll see Blissey slotting in are Fire Blast, Ice Beam, and Thunder. From what I've seen. You can also collect them like Grass Knot, which is pretty funny, but it's totally up to you whether you want to slot in. You can also go Aromatherapy. It's totally up to you whether you want to slot in that special attacking move. It's definitely not required. It is a huge reason people run Blissey over Chansey, because Chansey doesn't have that special attacking stat, so it will do way less damage, pretty much no damage compared to Blissey. But there are so many moves to put on Blissey. It is really important to understand that if you're going to put certain moves on Chansey, you kind of need the other moves. So a good example of this is Toxic and Protect. Toxic and Protect pretty much go hand in hand. If you're running one, you probably should be running the other on Blissey, although there might be some niche cases where that's not the case. So you can see, yeah, Chansey's special attack stat is 35, which is going to be doing no damage compared to Blissey's. It's not incredible. It's not like you use Blissey's special attack stat of 75 to hit 4 times weak Pokemon. So let's say your team with Blissey is really weak to Gliscor. You can run Ice Beam on it. Let's say you're really weak to Garchomp. You can run Ice Beam on it. Let's say you're really weak to Scizor. You can run Fire Blast. Let's say you're really weak to Gyarados, and like you're constantly having Gyaradoses like switch into your Blissey and set up on you with Dragon Dance. You can slot in Thunder. It's really dependent on like what your team is weak to and what you need to watch out for. So that's pretty much, hopefully that covers Blissey. If you guys have any questions about anything I've talked about today, let me know in the comments down below. I'm going to go ahead and move on over to Rotom Wash. It's hard to cover the entirety and try to answer every question and like how to use a Pokemon, even from a beginner sense and even from like a light sense like I'm trying to do in this video. It's hard to cover each one of these Pokemon in, like 4 minutes or so. So let's go ahead and talk about Rotom Wash. So Rotom Wash is my 5th recommendation. Going defensive Rotom Wash specifically. So I really recommend Bold Nature, Leftovers, and then, yeah, there you go. In terms of item, definitely go Leftovers. I think going a bulky defensive Rotom Wash is really easy to pilot. Having Volt Switch is really nice. Once again, all these like Pokemon that have access to like fast U-turns or even slow, any sort of like U-turn, teleport, Volt Switch, there's a reason like these moves define the metagame. There's a reason you need to watch out for Stealth Rocks because of them. Keeping momentum while also getting off some damage, or even not getting off damage, keeping momentum while having a slower teleport and tanking an attack like teleport, it's just so good. They're just some of the most powerful moves in all of Pokemon. Rotom Wash will often run things like Hydro Pump, Volt Switch. You can go Pain Split. Pain Split, Rotom Wash is extremely good against Blissey/Chansey, although it's really difficult to pilot. But it's really good because you'll see people really often switch in Chansey/Blissey into Rotom because it's a special. Blissey and Chansey are especially defensive Pokemon. Rotom's especially attacking Pokemon. So they're just going to switch it in, but you can still Volt Switch off them for free. You can still Pain Split off them to sustain your Rotom. Rotom still kind of counters Chansey/Blissey, but a lot of people will still try to bring it into it. It's probably a good thing to think about. What else? Rotom's just really good because Rotom is probably the biggest stat stick on this entire out of every Pokemon to talk about here, Rotom is probably like the most powerful overall and just like the best stat stick. I can't even like view its base stats. But Rotom, I believe Rotom Wash has like 108 or like it's like 106, 107, 108 special defense, special attack, and speed. All of its special attack, special defense, and speed stats are just incredible. And then its HP is like decent enough, and its defense is like slightly lacking, but you make up for all of that with the EVs. So you end up EV training it 252 HP, 252 defense, and then it ends up still doing. You will be so surprised training a Rotom Wash fully defensive. You will be so surprised how much damage it still does. It is absurd how much damage. It always feels like this Pokemon does too much damage for whatever reason, even though it's so defensive and can sustain and do everything. But once again, I recommend a moveset, something like Hydro Pump, Volt Switch, Pain Split, and the fourth move can be something like Will-O-Wisp to disable your opponents. I guess it could be Thunder Wave. I think it can run Thunder Wave. Thunder Wave. I think it might also have access to Hex if you want to go that route. If you have like a lot of other status moves on your team, Rotom Wash is such a good check. Rotom Wash is also probably, in my opinion, Rotom Wash is probably the best counter to Scizor in the entire OU meta. Not even Magnezone. Like I literally think Rotom Wash is better at checking Scizor than Magnezone, since Scizor can close combat Magnezone. Now, having both, when I personally played OU on my Cool Duder account, I had a really good series with that. I ran Rotom Wash and Magnezone. And running those two counters, I never had an issue with Scizor, because what you would do is if they would bring in Scizor, you would slow Volt Switch, and having a slow Volt Switch is nice, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a sec. You would Volt Switch and go into your Magnezone for free after taking an attack from Scizor, and then that would basically allow you to be able to Hidden Power Fire it for free. You would be a lot safer, essentially. Like if they switch on their Scizor, not to bring in Magnezone, you can really make the decision later. So the reason why slow Rotom Wash is really good in my opinion, and why it's super underrated, a lot of people end up going 31 speed on Rotom Wash, and I really don't think you need it a lot of the time. I really like going like 25 plus speed, and I'll specifically go a lower speed because you'll see so many Rotom Wash versus Rotom Wash wars in PvP. And what happens is if two Rotom Washes both Volt Switch, and your opponent's is faster, they'll Volt Switch first, have to reveal what Pokemon they're bringing in, and then you can Volt Switch. You Volt Switch after, right, in turn order. You Volt Switch after and can now answer that Pokemon. So having a slightly slower Rotom Wash, for my experience, for my minimal OU experience, was extremely powerful and extremely underrated. And I'm so happy I had like a 27 or like 28 IV Rotom Wash, and that literally won me like multiple games. Having that slower Rotom Wash was really, really incredible. Now, do I recommend going like 0 speed IV? Probably not. But like 20 plus, 25 plus was really, really worked out extremely well for me, and I recommend it. I think that's everything. Hopefully I'm not missing anything. Rotom Wash is just a really, really good pivot Pokemon. And what I mean by pivot Pokemon, he's really good at being able to switch in and then get out and maintain momentum, or just do absurd damage with Hydro Pump, etc., etc. That's pretty much it. I think that's everything I wanted to cover today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this type of video. If you did, please do make sure to let me know in the comments down below. Make sure to like the video if you liked it, because that will let me know you guys want to see more videos like this. Make sure to dislike it if you didn't. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see daily PokeMMO content. I'm one of the few content creators who upload daily PokeMMO content every single day. Although I do want to give a quick shout out to AFC Adino. He's been kicking ass in the PokeMMO scene recently, and I think he deserves the credit. He's been streaming, he's been making incredibly lengthy and in-depth PvP guides, and it's been incredible to see. Really high production value, really good PvP player. If you like PvP, go check out AFC Adino. Make sure to also join the Discord link down below if you want to join a really cool community. And then finally, if you want to go above and beyond, if my content has helped you gain some free ELO, if my PokeMMO content has either entertained you or informed you enough about the game, it does help a lot to give back by becoming a YouTube member for $5 a month, dropping a Twitch Prime or a Twitch sub over on my Twitch, or hitting up my PayPal or Venmo links down below. Never needed, never required, but it does help make the content better, and it helps kind of give me more of a free mind to worry about the content. So thank you all so much. Have a great day. I'll see you later. Peace and love from Patrouski. Good luck in your PvP games.